This episode of The Career Musician features indie singer-songwriter artist Tod Weidner. I've had the pleasure of producing a handful of songs for Tod these past few months, and let me tell you, this guy is an extraordinary singer-songwriter, lyricist, guitarist, and all the way around career musician. The late great folk singer-songwriter Bill Morrissey once pronounced Tod one of the best lyricists that he's ever heard. From punk bands to carpentry, Pink Floyd cover bands based in Nashville, and just about everything in between, you're not going to want to miss out on Tod's experiences as he shares with us right here on the Career Musician Podcast. So, welcome Tod Weidner to the Career Musician Podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much, Nomad. It's a pleasure to be here, and I will get out the way up front. We've been hanging out here for a few days now, and you are an absolute prince of a man and a pleasure to work with. I salute you, sir.
Well, thank you, sir. And you are a scholar and a gentleman,
thank you.
all on
Both?
your own. Yes,
Yeah.
Exactly. Because it is rare that we get to do the podcast these days here at the Nomad Place studio.
Right.
And of course, like you said, we've been tracking guitars. It's so much fun to do the overdubs.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's easy. You're an excellent coach.
Oh man, thank you. And you're an excellent player and artist.
Well, high praise indeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Mutual admiration society, as it were.
Totally. I'm just trying to keep up with you, brother.
Well, no, it's cool because it's so funny that. Okay, so for the listeners who may not know, Tod Weidner is a solo artist now, singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
He's come from many bands, which we'll hear about in a minute. I want to hear the whole,
whole
backstory.
sordid story. Yeah.
Yep. But we met through a dear mutual friend, Jack Pyatt.
Jack Pyatt. Bless
Hello,
his heart.
Jack.
Hello.
There he is.
Two of my favorite mates. And this is okay too.
There you go. Yes, and we got Eric G. manning the Pro Tools. And
the
iPhone,
linchpin
of
the whole operation.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
A talented gentleman in his own right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So we have a room full of talent here. The good
and
thing.
Jack.
Oh, I like that.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Yep.
So what I like about working in this capacity, and I was telling you this yesterday, being a session guitar player, touring guitar player most of my career, and now, of course, I'm focusing on producing, composing, but it's always nice when I get to produce another guitar player who knows what's up. That way I don't have to tell you every little note, and I don't have to feed it, and and I don't have to do it myself. I can just sit here with you and say, okay, let's do this, let's try this.
And it's also, from my standpoint, it's good working with such a great guitar player who knows how to speak guitar and knows how to make suggestions too. So it's definitely mutually beneficial. Especially
when we use the technical terms like give me another
the wiggly bit,
flop
the
or
wiggly. Not that there's a lot of on this project.
Well, you did a riff yesterday on one of your songs where you entered into a new section, like a chorus or a bridge, and it sounded like a drunk man stumbling down the stairs.
That's exactly. I couldn't ask for more. I specialize. That's my specialty.
Well, here's the funny part. When I said, that drunk part, and you go, oh yeah, and you played it, and I was like, we both immediately knew.
Yeah, it's guitarist shorthand. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. I like it. All right, so the career musician, our mission here is to focus on the empowerment of musicians for a sustainable career, right?
Yeah.
That's a mouthful, right?
It is.
Because as you know,
it's been a journey.
The words music, career, and sustainability somehow don't always go together.
Seldom.
Exactly.
Not as often as they should, at the very least. Yeah.
Right. So starting there with that premise, you have done it successfully for many years. So
I have been in the trenches for decades. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I want to hear all about it. So let's start at the beginning with the inception of your, how the bug bit you and your bands and whatnot.
Wow. Well, the bug there, I guess there's several different milestones in that. I mean, when I was in kindergarten, I inherited a stack of scratched up 45 records from my mom and her sister. Kind of combined these beat up, no sleeves, just stacks. One of them was Elvis Presley's All Shook Up. That was the one that really sunk its teeth into me. So my sister and I played those old records till they were even in worse shape. And then, so I always kind of liked music. A few years later, I got my first transistor radio. And I just, it was magical. I didn't really understand it. I just love the fact that I could go in my room, lie down on my bed, turn the radio on, and that was always in there. It was like anytime I needed it to be. And that sounds like I had some traumatic upbringing. I really didn't. I was very lucky to have the upbringing I had, and there was nothing particularly traumatic, but it was just nice to escape into music. And even before I had any inkling of wanting to play, that was there. It was just, it had this kind of magical power over me.
How did you get from that point to, oh shoot, I'm a guitar player? That's
I know we have bonded on Eddie Van Halen a lot. I mean, he was certainly a giant for me and you. But actually, I can pin it down to, I think I can pinpoint maybe 3 albums that I got. Jimi Hendrix's Smash Hits, that old early greatest hits that was actually released while he was still alive. And Stray Cats, Built for Speed. Brian Setzer,
I would
Little
not
Rockabilly.
have guessed that.
Yeah. And Prince's Purple Rain. I heard Let's Go Crazy on the radio. Yeah. And I thought that solo came up at the end, and I was like, I have no idea what he's doing, but it would be pretty bitchin' to know how to do that.
Figure that out.
Yeah. I still can't, but
I love it.
But yeah, and that whole album is just fantastic. I mean, I don't need to tell you.
Yeah.
That whole album is incredible. And yeah, so after that, and I went through these weird phases. I spent a year in junior high listening to nothing but Glenn Miller and Benny Goodman and like 30s, 40s swing. And
it's good to have that swing background, man. That jazz.
The roll. Keith Richards always talk about rock and roll. And now the trouble is nobody remembers the roll. It's all just rock now. The roll is very important. But
I love it.
And yeah, and that and that morphed into late 40s R&B, which I adore, Louis Jordan and things like that, and it became early rock and roll. And so I had all that going on in my head. My dad didn't really play any instrument. He kind of played harmonica, but he knew thousands of songs, and he would sing. He has this beautiful resonant bass voice, and he would sing all these songs. Mom wasn't particularly musical. They had a few record albums like Simon and Garfunkel and Kingston Trio and old Peter, Paul and Mary, early coffee house folk stuff.
There you go.
And so I learned harmonies through that. And then I went through, I grew up in the Midwest, so it was the 80s. Heavy metal, hard rock, classic rock, that's what I cut my teeth on. That's still sort of home base for me.
It's so brilliant to have that diversification, because you just mentioned, I like how you outline certain things. You have the swing, then you have the folk era where you learned harmony, right? And then the 80s hard rock and metal, and obviously that's where you got it.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and I've listened to a lot of the podcasts, and it's funny because a lot of your guests have gone to school for this, and I have never really. I'm not educated in that way. So I kind of went about it a different way. I just I am just a fanatic about music. I'm a nerd about music history. I'm really into tracing somebody I like, what are their influences, and then what are their influences, going back 3 or 4 generations and trying it all together. And I have a really good sense of perspective and reference. If you could tell me, like, play the Mixolydian scale, I might be able to puzzle it out if you gave me enough time. But if you say, give me Santana, I can do the Dorian. Because I know he's Dorian. He just does Dorian a lot.
But Mixolydian might be Mark Knopfler.
Right. So exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, if you give me a name or a band, I can cop it, because I never learned how to read or write music. But
see, that's a great point, and I know there's so many listeners that will be able to identify with this. You didn't go to school per se, but you self-educated.
Absolutely.
And that's and you think about before the institution of school was developed, how did people learn?
Exactly.
Well, they showed the
oral
next
tradition.
generation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you learned from.
Yeah, it's a great way to develop your ear, for sure.
Right.
I in lieu of having theory knowledge, I had a really good ear, and I can pick out chord voicings if I need to.
Well, that's important. You have to have a good ear. But this is what I always tell people: if you want to be an artist, it's actually almost better sometimes not to study, because you don't want to let your academia mind kick in when you should just be feeling from the heart and soul.
I am all about the vibe and the soul. I I would much rather listen to something sloppy with a good feel than something
man.
perfect.
That's right.
And there's a place for perfect too as well. It's beautiful. It can be very beautiful. But yeah, exactly. I totally agree. A lot of times people concentrate on the theory end to the detriment of the point of music, which is to make people feel things.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, and that's the perfect MO to have if you're an artist. Now, I know from the many conversations that you, Jack, and myself have had that you had a lot of different bands and permutations thereof. You both grew up in the Ohio area. Through Uncle George, we got to give a shout out to Uncle George, Uncle G,
Props
baby.
to Uncle George.
Yeah, thank you for introducing these two gentlemen. So tell us about your foray into band land, if you will.
Well, it started off with a bunch of, high school, awful sounding, out of tune high school cover bands like everybody else. It was years before. I'd been playing in bands for years before it even occurred to me that somebody's writing these songs, and you can do that too. So I kind of gradually shifted. I started hearing bands like REM, and when I went to college out of high school, I started getting exposed to a lot of the it was college rock back then. It's kind of before it became alternative rock, and now it's whatever it is. But
that's right,
underground,
rock.
left of the radio dial rock, and
right.
So that got me exposed to a whole new school of the REM's things. I started kind of moving away from the hard rock, hair band, heavy metal thing into more a songwriting oriented direction. And
remember Tod the Wet Sprocket?
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's that category.
Exactly. Yeah. The jangle.
The jangle.
Yeah.
That's when the jangly guitars were invented. I feel like, or at least
concrete.
Right?
They took the birds and all the other stuff and
right.
and then added that alternative rock soup that ruled the airwaves for a while. And then and also through hard rock I got my gateway was also bands like Jane's Addiction and Soundgarden. The kind of it's heavy enough, I can listen to it without being embarrassed about it. But there's also other little things like Bauhaus creeping in and the post-punk things and so I started. My first initial songs that I started writing were very much in the Seattle kind of thing. Sludgy, a lot of really slow bend strings and the early songs, like everybody's early songs, were terrible.
Yeah.
It took me a long time before I had something I was actually proud enough to show other people, and it's a lot of trial and error.
Well, that's the perfect segue, because really the focus of what we're talking about today is the production process as an evolution. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm producing your new record, a good portion of it, probably about half of the songs, and being able to cultivate and shape and mold this artistic being right before our very eyes. And I say we're doing it together because you bore the songs, right? The songs came from you, and then now I'm helping, kind of cuddle them up, and we're together. How do you say with a baby when you wrap it in the cloth?
Oh, swaddling.
We're swaddling, these songs together, right? Yeah, exactly. So that is the focal point here. But I will say this. All of that stuff that you experienced early on, and all of those different bands, and a lot of the failures, the out-of-tune stuff, or the not being able to communicate properly with band members, or not being able to put your finger on a sound and dialing it in. Right. I feel like all of that is necessary to get to this point.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Imagine us doing this now. You wouldn't.
We might not even be doing it.
Yeah,
now.
We wouldn't be well equipped.
It's gotta. Sometimes if it comes too easy, if somebody has a true gift, they don't appreciate it. That's right. It's the 10,000 hours is really valuable because you have to sit through a lot of crap, and if you're still hanging in there after that, you're a lifer. You're good for life. And,
that's right.
And you notice things improving. You notice the songs. You're starting to learn how to do it. You're like, okay, well, this is where a bridge should go.
Right.
Before you may not even know what a bridge was, So you're just constantly accumulating aha moments happening, daily or weekly, and you're accumulating all this stuff, and you just kind of file all the information away in your brain, and before you know it, you've got a bunch of songs that you're actually not embarrassed to play to other people. And
I love that, and I want to talk about that. Actually, I want to talk about how you cut your demos. We're going to save that.
Okay.
Before we get there, this is what I want to know, because there's so many artists out there, whether they live in another country or somewhere else in America, across the country itself. So many are trying to get to LA. Oh, I got to be in LA. I want to get out west. I got, like so many before us.
Yeah.
So what was the impetus there for you? What brought you here?
What brought me to the West Coast was actually my wife. She got a job. We live up in the Bay Area in Santa Clara, and she got a tech job, like so many people up there.
Right.
And she had kind of ended up basically going. We're both natives of Dayton, Ohio, so it's like about a half an hour north of Cincinnati, kind of the southwestern corner of the state. Right. And it was a great place to grow up and a great place to live. But we had Patrice had gotten to the part, my wife had gotten to the part where she had advanced as far as she was going to go in that field there.
Big fish in small pond.
Exactly, very much so. And so yeah, she started looking outward, and we were looking at a couple different cities, but the San Francisco area was definitely a prime candidate, and she ended up getting a good job out there. So we settled up, and it was at that point was like, I'm about ready to kind of test my wings after decades, literally. I was sort of a fixture on the Dayton music scene, and it's.
Well, you had shared with me about that. It sounds like you were the same big fish in small pond.
Definitely, absolutely,
kind of scenario.
Yeah, and which is great up to a point. It's the Dayton music scene. For those who don't know, it's not a big town. It was a former industrial, kind of a Rust Belty sort of. It's a big General Motors town. That industry left. Wow. But the music heritage, the town is only maybe, I guess, 350,000 people, but. From that town, you have Roger Troutman and Zapp. You have Ohio Players. You have Sun. You have Slave. It's like the home of funk. Yeah. King Records was in Cincinnati, half an hour down the road, where James Brown and all these early R&B people recorded. And Bootsy Collins still lives in Cincinnati. Baby. And for rock and roll, the Breeders come from Dayton, Ohio. Guided by Voices comes from Dayton, Ohio. It's got a huge bluegrass scene because the people were moving up from Kentucky to get auto factory jobs. Wow. So there's all that heritage, and it's just an incredibly rich music heritage in there.
You are a music historian.
I love it.
I love it.
It's my passion. Yeah. It's so. It led to me having a radio show for 5 years on a public station in Yellow Springs, just outside of Dayton, where I just played whatever.
What was the topic? What was the?
It was a 3-hour music show. It was called the Jewel Case, and I would have a theme each week. I would do 1 hour of kind of celebrating birthdays, giving shout outs to musicians who passed. That would kind of form the framework of the first hour. But then I would, in the second and third hour, I would pick a theme and just draw songs from all genres that had something to do with that theme. And I kind of curated this huge show. It was literally anything goes.
So you would curate these playlists, play the original recordings, and then connect the dots for people.
Yeah. I could have Ella Fitzgerald and Bad Brains within 3 songs because it was a public radio station that let me do whatever I want.
Yeah. Because
within reason.
It's about the culture. It's about the art itself.
It's all about tying strings together and figuring out where the connections are.
There's no bubblegum popsicle sticks to tie together.
Right. But back to my point about Dayton is such a rich, fertile music scene, and the talent in that town still to this day is way above average. And it is a very nurturing scene.
I'd say every time I've passed through, I love it.
Yeah. It's
quaint town,
it
vibey.
Is. It's cool. It's very and it's very inexpensive. It's a good place to be based if you're a musician, because Chicago, Nashville, all these cities are within 5 hours.
Chicago, Detroit, Nashville, anywhere. Bam, Wisconsin, Milwaukee.
Now, the downside of it being a nurturing music scene, it can also be a little dangerously insular, and that's where the big fish in the little pond comes in. You kind of live in your own little echo chamber. Right. And I figured it would probably be healthy for me to start. I had a band for 27 years and counting called Shrug. We've got 6 albums out, and we were kind of mainstays in the rock scene in Dayton, and we. Due to various things, we did some traveling early on. We played places like New York City. We played North by Northeast in Toronto. We had a few forays out there, almost got signed to Bad Boy Records at one point when well, he was Puff Daddy back then. Diddy
You
was.
and Jack were talking
Yeah,
about this. Yeah, tell us how did that
Yeah,
transpire?
well, that was we were on a label based in New York in the Bronx called Rock Records, and it was run by a gentleman much like yourself, a producer engineer who had worked with a lot of different people, among others. He was an engineer on Madonna's Erotica album, and so he had a lot of New York scene connections.
There you go.
And yeah, so he, through a friend of his who worked for Bad Boy, wanted to, we were looking at maybe signing a publishing deal with Bad Boy. This is when Diddy was kind of trying to branch out into rock. He had a band called Fuzzbubble for a while on his label. Yeah. And so we ended up going to the big high-rise building and meeting him, and it ended up just the deal we were offered just didn't ring right. It was just it didn't seem quite kosher. Not maybe it was kosher, but just not fair.
Hey, it
not
happens.
fair enough. Yeah, exactly.
Deals
So
don't always work out. Yeah.
we were just walking around New York City. Did we just meet Puff Daddy? And
I love that.
so yeah, and that one thing didn't lead to another, and so there was that. And then as the band evolved, we got a lot of radio campaigns. We charted on CMJ. We charted in Clear Channel stations around the country.
Right.
We didn't, unfortunately, have the ability to capitalize on that. We were starting families. We were getting day jobs. It's part of the Dayton thing where it's really, really hard to make a living as just a musician in Dayton. It can be done, but it's what you do when your day job lets out. And that's how I was a carpenter. I did all kinds of construction and restoration work. Wow. And so just for whatever reason, we just kind of stayed close to home.
I just drew a connection there. Yeah. That's why you love working on guitars. Your
Probably
carpentry
is.
skills.
Yeah, my tinkering maybe. Yeah, I guess so.
Awesome.
That's true. I don't think I'd even made that connection at all. But I was in some other bands in Dayton that did do some touring. I played bass in a band called the Motel Beds for several years. We headed out for a good while. I spent 5 years in a Pink Floyd tribute band.
We talked about this.
Yeah.
Gilmore being an affinity
definitely,
for both of us.
Yeah. So that was an education I would recommend to anybody. And the band was based in Nashville.
I remember you saying that as well. So you were commuting to go do rehearsals?
So before the band even played a gig, for about 2 months, I would get up on Sunday morning about 6 a.m. I would drive to Nashville, get there around noon, grab lunch in the car. We would rehearse until about 7 at night, and then I would drive home, get home about midnight, 1 o'clock, and then I would get up and work my construction job the next day. So we did that for 2 months straight before we figured we were ready to play, and then the gigging started. So I would almost every weekend again drive down to Nashville. We'd get in the van and then drive off to wherever we were playing that weekend. Weekend warrior thing.
That's weekend warrior mileage to the next level. That's like you've paid your dues at that point.
It was insane. I was exhausted all the time because it's no sooner had I gotten used to the musician schedule, I would have to go back and work on houses
5-day
all week.
work
You're
week doing construction. Yeah.
So
wow.
It was exhausting, but tribute band, I couldn't there's nothing like taking a deep dive into somebody else's style, and our goal in that band was to sound as much like the records as we can. We didn't bother with the lasers or the light shows. That's logistically, for what we were doing, too hard to manage. But we just said, let's sound as much like the records as we can. We had a 3.5-hour show. We had 3 guitar players covering all the parts and the textures. We had a 2 keyboard players, and one of which doubled on sax. And it was a big production. We all sang, and it was fun, and it was. We were really good at sounding like the albums. We didn't have the whole visual show, but I would have put us up against pretty much any of the Pink Floyd acts traveling around. It was great.
Guitar nerd moment for a minute here. First of all, I love guitar players will understand this. I love the fact that, again, I said it to you earlier. I said I can drop a reference and you just nail it. So you and I have talked about this. We've gone from Angus Young to Eddie Van Halen to David Gilmour to Jimi Hendrix.
All the classic rock favorites.
Bob Marley. I don't care who it is. And like you were saying, Ohio players or James Brown. Anything really, classic rock, funk, soul, R&B, country. We talked about singer-songwriter Steve Earle. We talked about country pickers and so I love that, Buchanan and so forth. there is such a dialect there that only, as we call pickers, guitar slingers would know. And it's really cool to have that on instant call. Right?
It is,
You can just pick
and I was lucky enough to have developed my ear to the point where I could pick up, because I never really, I took one course in music theory in college. I did okay at it, but I'd already been playing guitar for so long that I couldn't figure out how to apply that to, because there's 5 different places on the neck you can play this note.
Sometimes more.
But
I think here's the underlying point that I'm getting to. Amidst all of those influences, you still sound like Tod Weidner. I still sound like Nomad, and Eric G still sounds like him, because we all do our own thing, and musically that's what's important. And I don't care if you talk to the virtuoso of the virtuosos. That's what they're going to tell you. Yeah,
it's your own little fingerprint is how you amalgamate all the different things you dig, and hopefully you can amalgamate them into a unique way that becomes your way. And
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, switching gears.
Okay.
Now, here at the Career Musician, we are launching an initiative in late 2020, early 2022. I can't believe I'm saying that already. Jeez. It's all about how to record like a pro from home.
Okay.
Now, let me tell you, everybody listening, Tod, so as the producer, I get firsthand, bid on his demos. So Jack, the executive producer, and Tod say, okay, we have these songs, and they send me these songs, and I listen to the demos, and my first inclination was, well, Jack, why are we re-recording these sound great. Wow. So it's like, so here's my point. In your dining room, as you have divulged, of an apartment, nonetheless, with a Helix Line 6 and GarageBand on your laptop.
MacBook Pro,
MacBook Pro, and a Shure 57 mic.
Mostly,
You have cut demos that truly sound like a pro. So again, we are launching this course, and you'll definitely get it. I want you to be a beta tester.
Oh my gosh, be honored.
So where we painstakingly walk you through how to record professionally from home. You have really nailed that process.
Thank you.
I don't care if you think that your workflow is not dialed in. Doesn't matter. The end result speaks that you have nailed it.
Thank you.
So tell us about that.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Tell us how you ventured upon that, and how did you really hone it? Because
the pandemic, one word.
Okay.
It's
really. So before that, you had no.
I had done a little,
Okay.
But there was nothing else to do. I had nothing going on. I had just started playing with a few different groups in San Francisco. We had some gigs lined up, and whoop,
fell through,
rug got pulled out. So I had a handful of songs going into the pandemic that had reached the ear through my buddy Jack of some we'll get to those later, I guess. But anyway. So the pandemic happens. What am I going to do? I can't even. I'm legally not. I'm not allowed to be in the room with my bandmates. So it's like, well, I guess I'll go back to writing songs, and I did. I had maybe 4 songs for this project coming into that. I came out with 19, and it was also I was able to just learn to teach myself how to use GarageBand.
So you crack open the MacBook day one, and you said, "Oh, I think I have GarageBand here," and you and literally clicked on it, and that's how you started?
I had been using GarageBand I'd done a few songs before then, but the pandemic was a really good opportunity to focus on that, and
so you resolved.
Exactly. I'm still trying to hone it. If each song sounds a little better than the one before it, then you're going in the right direction.
But that's my whole point. I think it doesn't matter the medium, and that's actually that's the common thread of the course. I don't care which DAW you're using, digital audio workstation, whether it's GarageBand, freaking Fruity Loops, Acid, Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, and so forth, the big dogs. It doesn't matter as long as you understand how to put sounds together.
Right.
you know, and you have to kind of tweak it.
Yeah, and there are tutorials, and you know, I got the mixer's engineer handbook, the Bobby Owsinski book, which helped a lot. I got from my friend this invaluable sheet, the frequency cheat sheet.
Yeah,
you
like
know,
the one on the door here.
Right. Yeah, it's
exactly.
like if the bass is muddy, try this band, and that was invaluable. That once I got that, it was just a question of just doing it over and over again until you started getting a feel for it. And I'm still getting a feel for it. I still feel I've got a long way to go, but I really appreciate you saying that about the demos, because you hear demos all the time. And
absolutely.
And I never had any illusions about them being anything but demos, because I was using the GarageBand drums, and it's just, you know, I've grown up playing with live drummers, and it's you know, it's not really a thing unless there's a guy playing the kit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Everything that we do here, and I say that all the time, as a producer, as a composer, I do not record demos. Yeah. Everything I do is a master recording.
Right.
Now, whether it gets used for its original intended purpose or not doesn't matter, because I repurpose everything. Yeah. And that's the beauty of being the creator of what you do, right? So if it doesn't get used for this film or this TV show or this record, then guess what? It's going to end up in my music library. Right. And then it's going to get reused down the line somewhere else. I can guarantee you that. So there's nothing wasted on the cutting room floor.
That's right. And I do a similar thing. It's like if I don't want to bother opening up GarageBand, the voice memos on the phone is wonderful. You can get an idea down, and then I just accumulate 50 of those, and then I'll go through them. I'll say I'll put them in little folders on my computer. It's like these are ideas in A minor, B, and so if I'm writing a song and I'm kind of stuck on where to go, it's like it should go to C here. And then I'll go open up the C folder and see if there's anything, a little snippet I did that might be similar. It's beautiful. You've got little snippets where you can.
Now, do you have a G flat folder? Be honest.
No. No. Those are the expensive keys, man. I can't play on those expensive keys.
I love it. I'm just teasing. So here's the other thing, which is really cool. Several of the demo stems made it to the final album.
I'm so thrilled about that. That makes me so happy, and it was completely unexpected. It was. I never had any goals with those demos other than just to lay the songs out and kind of get arrangements. So
well, it's funny because I heard the guitar solo on one, and we walked into the Steakhouse Studios the day we were tracking, and I said, Todd, you don't need to replay that solo. We're just going to use the one on the demo.
And I breathed a sigh of relief, and I wiping my brow. It's I'm fine with that.
And it sounds badass. And you recorded it. This is a shameless plug. I do endorse Line 6, but this is a shameless plug. You recorded it on the Helix.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out to the Helix. Yeah,
but it sounds like you mic'd it up, pushing air. You know. The whole deal.
Thank you. I that was an absolute lifesaver. Yeah. If I had gone into the pandemic without A, GarageBand, and B, the Helix, because I live, like you said, I live in an apartment. I can't crank an amp up.
Right.
Those two products are why I have this batch of songs.
I love that. So there you go. So technology affording us the opportunity to do what we want at a large scale that, a couple decades ago was not at our fingertips.
Yeah, if the pandemic had hit 25 years ago, there would be no records being made there for the first part of it, because nobody outside a few people,
Right.
But now anybody with a laptop can make an album now.
Now I had the Tascam Porta 1.
Yeah.
8-track cassette recorder or 4-track cassette recorder. Yeah.
I had something called a Sinclair. It was
not a Sinclavier.
No,
a Sinclair.
Far from it. No.
Sinclavier at the time was like $30,000. Yeah.
Sinclair. I got it in Columbus, Ohio. At this furniture closeout store. Where they were just getting rid of stuff that wouldn't sell. It was about the size of half the size of a dorm refrigerator. Wow. It was a turntable on top. It was a double cassette deck with a tuner, so it was a stereo, but there were also faders and knobs and channels. It was a 4-track studio there as well.
I love that.
It was just a piece of crap, but
vibey.
But it was, and it got me started doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I just sort of didn't really invest in any better stuff. When that thing died, I just sort of started using a boombox, and the idea was I would just take the song ideas to band practice anyway, and I'd just show the guys what I've got in mind, and then we'd work out and play it out live, workshop it, and then sooner or later it was time to go to a studio and record it. So I basically jumped from that piece of junk to GarageBand. There wasn't really a whole lot of in between. There was a couple,
Right,
like a
man.
decade or so of time, but yeah.
You made it work. You made it work. Now, speaking of the new album,
Yes.
because we've been in the trenches working on it. We've tracked, several days so far, and we've done a bunch of overdubs, and we're moving into more tracking sessions.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Steve Ferroni on the phone.
I
I mean, come on, that's pretty.
Yeah, this is especially coming from my background where I, as much of a music history nerd as I am, and just how the high regard I hold my musical heroes, to have these people interested and available in helping me out. I am still at the stage of my career where I'm just really having trouble grappling with that reality.
Yeah, well, here's the good news.
Yeah.
No need to grapple, because I'll put it in the words of the great Quincy Jones. He said, any producer worth their salt, any good producer, knows how to use their Rolodex, perhaps one of the most important instruments in their toolbox.
Yeah.
That just means you know how to make the right calls, right? So when Quincy was producing, all of his, legendary body of work,
where do you start?
Yeah, when he called Greg Fillinganes, or Herbie Hancock, or J.R. Robinson, these are making the right calls. So I want to say this, and I've always had extreme reverence for those who came before me, just like you do. So and for those who don't know, Steve Ferroni, Tom Petty, Average White Band, just to scratch the surface, and then his
master of the pocket.
Exactly. So for me to be able to pick up my phone and to have these numbers logged in there, I am very grateful. I don't take that for granted. And when I call Steve Ferroni or Nathan East, and they return the call and they say, sure, we'd love. Oh, right now I'm out with Eric Clapton, but as soon as I get back from that,
Right.
it's really thrilling, and I am so grateful. But I'm even more grateful to be able to experience that with new people and bring it into our little circle and what we're doing. And so your album is stacked. We also, today, who came into the studio, Ashley Davis, who sang with Prince.
Yeah.
She sang on his whole last album.
Just stopping by.
Yeah, exactly. So she's going to be on a tune. Tim Carmen also, list goes on, but Eric Clapton as well.
Yeah, these are heavy cats. And
exactly. We, Chris, as I call him, Thigpen, Megan Trainor's bass player.
Right.
Robin Diaz, who's out with Candlebox right now, and a whole host of other rock bands.
Another lifer, for sure. Yeah.
And then this is where, damn it, I dropped my little sticky notepad. Jack says, okay, Nomad, you're going to produce these songs. Oh, but then, by the way, I have Jack Douglas and Shelly Yakis on the phone, and they're going to produce the other half. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, well, let me tell you and that was what I was alluding to earlier. That was one of the first batch of songs through Jack reached the ears of Jack Douglas and Shelly.
Right.
And they were really into it, and that was a hugely validating thing, and also a vaguely terrifying thing, because at that point I was just dipping my toe into the new chapter.
Right.
And to immediately get validation on that level from people I grew up listening to the work of, all the Aerosmith albums, Alice Cooper, New York Dolls.
Yeah. So when they say, "Oh, I like your songs,"
John Lennon, right, and that led to so I ended up speaking on the phone to both of them, and it was just I'm standing in my kitchen talking to the guy who produced all of John Lennon's albums, and then I talked to the guy who engineered Moondance and Imagine and Damn the Torpedoes. And I'm just kind of floating outside myself, looking down on myself in the kitchen, watching myself talk to these people, and managing not to make a complete ass of myself.
Right.
And then I just sort of went for a walk. I walked down the street to McDonald's and just sort of sat there and just blinked. It's like,
So why did you have to walk to McDonald's? I just
started walking. I ended up at a McDonald's. I don't know.
It wasn't like a cool vibey bar or a coffee shop.
I told my wife, it's like I gotta take a walk. I gotta take a walk, and then before I know
38 billion served. That's where I'm going.
Throw that out. Throw something else in there. Vibey bar.
I love
that. But and here's where the thing. As I mentioned, mixed feeling. I am incredibly flattered, incredibly honored beyond words to catch the ear of these people.
Right.
And at the same time, from wherever it comes from, it's I've heard you talk about it to other guests. The notorious imposter syndrome. where
So glad you brought that up.
yeah, it's it's something I have battled with. I don't know. I think part of it comes from where I come from, and the fact that we're kind of underdogs in the Midwest, and the Dayton, they're kind of the underdogs of Ohio. We've kind of got a chip on our shoulder, but we're always, this could go away at any moment, and you're just so I'm constantly waiting to be,
But that's a sense of gratitude that can't be bought.
It is. Yeah, it makes you really appreciate it when good things happen.
And I wish more of the population of our globe possessed that deep gratitude.
Yeah, it is. It's and yeah, the last. Well, then the pandemic happened, so all these great plans immediately they're still on the table, but who knows when this is going to happen. So, on top of just the general anxiety of a situation the world has never seen before, the modern world has never seen before. Beyond. I've got all this cool stuff lined up somewhere in the indefinite future. Right. So, and I don't know when it's going to happen. So it's like, all I can do is just try to, now it's like, okay, would I show this song to Jack Douglas? Yeah. Right. So that definitely raised the bar and inspired me. Yeah. And so no, I wasn't sure what I was getting ready to say.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because here's this interesting dichotomy of the imposter syndrome, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, deep sense of gratitude, just thankful for all the opportunities. And then here's the other portion of, you have the perfect storm right here with the chemistry. And it stems from a 25-odd year or so relationship with your friend Jack Pyatt, who's the executive producer. Now, but also, in somewhere in the middle there's this deep-rooted sense of loathing or deprecation that we have, self-deprecation, right, as artists. And you and I were talking
inherently,
about this. Yes. So I want to talk about this because, first of all the artists listening, okay, all the hopeful artists who, you're a musical artist, but you haven't gotten that break yet. Do not be discouraged.
Definitely not.
Because what Todd and I have been talking about, in fact, for the past several,
I am a textbook example of why you shouldn't be discouraged. I've been doing this since the early 90s, late 80s, really, if you get right down to it. And it's just now beginning to coalesce.
See that?
Yeah.
And the perfect storm here is that it took all this time to actually, concrete and build itself. But not only that, you have all the right elements. It had you set out to, in the 90s or some point, tried to make this happen systematically.
Yeah, it wouldn't have.
You can't force things like that.
There is a kind of a, whether you call it karma or just sowing seeds or luck or however you want to do it, there is an intangible thing at work that you have no control over. You can do your best to be prepared in whatever ilk you prefer to be in, whether it's me just getting a good ear or studying music, or you can set the pieces, you can set the tools in place, but it does come down to opportunities and taking advantage, being there, being open to them, putting the energy out into the universe, and being available and willing when the time comes. And it's all kind of managed to line up for me in the last year or so.
Well, it's like, and the definition of luck, when opportunity meets preparedness.
Exactly.
So you were self-educating. So again, all of my artists out there, all of my hopeful, aspiring career musicians on this level, this upper echelon, there is no such thing as luck. Prepare your ass off now. Yeah. That way, when the door of opportunity does open, you just walk right through it.
And just be cool in the meantime. Yes. It just comes down to respect and just treating people well. And that energy will return on you. You'll find yourself surrounded by. It's been, I can't tell you, again, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass, but it's just been such an honor to be working with these. You mentioned Chris Thegpen, Destiny Petrell, Robin Diaz.
Thank you, Destiny.
All of these talented people, and it's such an enthusiastic and optimistic and upbeat and cheerful. And Eric G. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Yes,
that's right.
I knew
Eric
it.
G.
Yeah.
Well, he's, and it's funny because he's kind of like the unsung hero in the camp, because he's my right-hand man.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, he did a beautiful job mastering
on the
his first
mastering
song,
of the
and
first
yeah,
single, that's right.
and he wrote the chart. He wrote charts out that I can't read at the first session. I was like, oh, thank you for these, and I was like, I don't know.
Oh, don't worry, and he's gonna write more.
Right, yeah. So, but it was just to be in that environment where everybody was professional and cheerful and just looking forward to what the next day brings. That really helps you feel like you belong.
That's right.
So it helps battle that imposter syndrome that I was talking about.
There you go. Oh, by the way, and don't forget, we hooked up with Bernard Fowler from the Rolling Stones, who's going to hopefully sing some BGVs on one of your tracks.
I'm just slowly meeting all of my heroes.
Yeah, and a big shout out to Steakhouse with Sam Mathill and the gang over there, because they have been an integral part to the project. So I think if you zoom out, the overlying consensus here, sentiment, if you will, of this group of people that we have, it's all about one word for me. It's always been team. Yeah. And I think everybody here would agree with
everybody
that.
Brings their strengths.
No man is an island unto himself, right? That's an age-old proverb. Sure. And it's the truth, and you shouldn't operate in a vacuum. Can you operate in a vacuum? YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok? Yes, you can, but I don't advise it, because you're going to get even better work when you collaborate.
Well, and just having the sounding board.
Yes.
That's the dangerous part of a vacuum too. You grow faster when you
don't have the sounding board. If you
and like I said, it really validates to being able to get the opportunity to work with all you awesome, cheerful, just positive people. It made me feel, like I said, like I actually earned the place to be there.
There you go.
And my wife had really good advice. She's much smarter than I am. She
upper management usually.
We've talked a lot about imposter syndrome over the last several years, and she said, "Well, look at it this way: either you have talents that are worthy of these people because they're working with you. I mean, they must see something in you that makes them want to work with you. Yeah. Or you have managed to snow everybody.
I was just going to say.
You have managed to somehow con everybody into thinking which makes you an evil genius.
Or she shakes you, gradually.
Or that.
Who are you? Where is my husband?
Right, right. That's So
you're the ultimate imposter. Which
as
is just
usual, she cut right to the point and said, "Yeah, you're right. Okay, all right."
You're either a really damn good actor or you're legitimate.
But at the same time, you don't ever want to lose all of that, because it keeps you humble, it keeps you grounded, and it keeps you an artist, because insecurity and self-doubt is where art comes from.
Amen to that. And when you have arrived, the desire to work hard is not as strong. Let's face it.
Right, and for it to happen relatively late in my life, as it is for me, finally, it gives you a whole new sense of appreciation for it, and it's a whole new level, like a whole other level of gratitude.
That's right.
And I totally lost what I was going to say.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. And now it's time for a breakdown.
Yes.
Actually, what we mean is rapid fire. Eric, thank you, my friend. See? He's on it.
Rapid fire. Here we go.
All right, you ready?
Okay, let's see how little sleep gets me here.
Here we go. Top 3 artists in your playlist.
Richard Thompson, Tom Petty, Led Zeppelin.
Last movie you saw in the theaters?
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Instrument you wish you played?
Saxophone.
Drink of choice, libation, if you will.
Iced tea.
You're not even gonna spike it with vodka or whiskey or something?
No, man. I never really been that kind of guy.
Dream collab.
Dream collab. Wow, that is man. How rapid fire does this have to be?
Let's go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Jack's got you booked for a gig, actually, so you gotta hurry.
Right. Yes, that's true. That's true.
It's true. It's no lie.
I'd love to work with John Bonham.
John Bonham. Okay, good. I like it. If he was live. But favorite food?
Pizza, sentimental favorite. I can't really eat it very much anymore, but I still.
We were talking about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Once you get to be
years old. Yeah.
Favorite city?
Favorite city. Oh my God. I'm so bad at this.
Dayton?
Well, yeah, Dayton. It's home.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll always be home.
As entertainers, we entertain people all the time. What entertains the Mr. Tod Weidner?
What entertains me?
Yeah.
I'm really pretty boring. I like to read. I like to go for a walk. I know.
Sorry. Wait. Are we still doing
this is that. Right. Exactly. This is some edgy rock and roll stuff we're getting into here.
Yeah. Hidden talents.
Hidden talents. Drawing.
Love that. Which do you prefer, studio or live performance?
Live.
Musical guilty pleasure. Do you have some Debbie Gibson in there now?
Don't believe in them. I don't believe in guilty pleasures.
I like
if you
that.
like something, you like it.
Like it. Favorite decade of music? Yeah, within reason. You don't have. It doesn't have to be.
I'll pin it down. I'm partial to the year I was born, and I guess I by saying it, I'm going to completely give away my age. But no, I was born in '70. It was a hell of a year for music.
See, and the '70s. I was born in '72, so I think the '70s are super.
Late '60s, early like the 10-year stretch between '65 and '75.
Love it, love it. Your friends, such as Jack Pyatt, sitting over here to our right, would say you are.
Man.
Besides handsome, talented, and everything else.
One of my
punctual
songwriters of all time.
One of your favorite songwriters of all time. Love it.
It has zero to do with the fact that I know.
There you go.
That we're friends. That's legit.
I love
my
it.
Mount Rushmore of songwriters, he's on.
Wow.
Mount Rushmore of songwriters for Jack Pyatt.
I blush.
Tod Weidner made that list. That's incredible. Love it. And I can attest to that. You are a lyrical gangster, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, song or band that changed your life? Artist?
Well, yeah.
One.
I mean,
just name one. I know you have many.
Yeah. Van Halen.
See,
that's
why we're brothers. See,
my fandom of Eddie Van Halen like passed healthy fandom and went into identity crisis. You know, like I wanted to be that guy.
Yeah. Can you imagine if you and I ran into each other
at
that age when we were teenagers?
We would have been completely geeking
Eddie,
out.
Like,
That
would have been not so.
But actually, Jimi Hendrix probably more than anybody. He's probably my biggest musical influence. It's just,
I like
he's the total package.
I like that. Last concert you attended, you did not play. You just attended.
X in San Francisco. The band X.
Tell us. I don't know band X.
X is a pioneering LA punk band.
Got it.
Okay. And they were one of the first X and the Germs, and it was like late '70s pioneers of the LA punk scene. They played up at the Independent in San Francisco. I'm a huge fan of theirs. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. And what a great city to go see live music. San
It's a good concert town.
There you go. Yeah. All right, and finally, what would you do, my friend, besides carpentry? If you weren't a career musician, because I'm not going to let you get away with that easy.
Oh man, what would I do? You know, before I caught the music bug, I was going to be a pilot. I wanted to be a pilot. I'm an airplane geek.
So turbulence does not scare you?
Oh no, I don't really. That's the thing. I love airplanes, but I don't really like flying all that much. So
okay,
I'm a complicated guy.
I'm a big baby. Turbulence scares the crap out of me. And all my friends who fly, they're like, dude, chill. You're not going to die from this.
And I'm also 6'5", and I can't afford to not ride and coach. So flying taking a flight is kind of an ordeal that I have to put up with to get where I'm going at this point.
I feel your pain. I'm not 6'5", I'm 6, but I still get your.
But I do love planes, and I was going to be a fighter pilot. Before I realized I didn't like math enough, and that was what I had my sights set on until I picked up guitar.
Wow.
Whole major sea change.
Well, I am glad, and the universe is glad that you did.
I'm glad I did too.
My brother, welcome to the Career Musician. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it.